You cannot stop. While you could be working, while you could be further along the road, less traveled, you're sitting there contemplating, like you're sitting there moaning about it. You're sitting there complaining about it. You gotta work. Get your life in your hands. Like flat out. If you gonna be a boss, take responsibility. It's time to take ownership. Take ownership of your life. Take ownership of your time. Take ownership of your day. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. Ain't no such thing as tomorrow. We only got today.
And we want to make a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to start living life with a sense of urgency and using what we've got, using ourselves up, sharing what we brought into the universe to share. Because if we don't, nobody else will. Stop wasting valuable time. If we begin to live our lives as if each day were our last, our lives will take on a whole new meaning.
No more dreaming. Dreaming is over. I need specifics. What are you doing on Monday? What are you doing on Tuesday? What are you doing on Wednesday? You need to be very specific. It's time to put your pieces together of your puzzle. When you die, when life is over for you, I don't want you to have one idea left in you. I don't want one dream left in you. When you die, I want you to go for broke. Every CD that you were supposed to do, every book you were supposed to write, I want you to get everything out your system. You got to be very intentional with it. The stuff that you're dreaming about, the stuff that you want to happen, it's not going to happen by osmosis. Like, you got to get up and you got to go after it. And what the devil wants you to do, what the enemy wants you to do is get distracted and focus on stuff you shouldn't be focusing on. He wants you to stay in bed. What he would love to do is for you to waste these next 2 to 3 weeks. You need to be in a big damn hurry. Time is running out on you. There's 86,400 seconds in a day. The separator between me and you and people that win and lose is what we do with those seconds. And you're too slow. You're too casual. You think too much. You need to get in a hurry because there's an end to your life and it's coming sooner than you think. It goes by in a flicker and at some point it's going to be over.
People spend time waiting for when the time is going to be right. They're waiting for the pieces to fall into place. They're waiting for the planets to align. They're waiting for everything to be all set. It's not going to happen. You want to know when the time is right? The time is right now. All you have to do to kill procrastination is just start. You just go. Just go. And procrastination dies. Just don't allow it. Stop it. And do what you need to do. So don't wonder how you overcome procrastination. It's easy. All you do to overcome procrastination is go. Go through the motions. Get it done. So what are you doing with your time? Are you doing something productive? Are you moving towards a goal? Making yourself better? Or are you letting time slip by? Wasted.
I hate it when I see young people wasting their time, wasting all this technology got. Just sitting around in this world that's been created for you, that everything is instant. You all have stuff at your fingertips that can make you great. But if you can combine your technology with your parents and your grandparents' work ethic, you could be rich. But you cannot erase the work ethic part. There is no getting around. Ain't no elevator to the top. You got to take the stairs. The elevator don't go to the top, man. Not in the world of success. You got to take the stairs. Y'all got to start getting gritty, man. You got to develop some dog in you.
That idea isn't going to execute itself. That book isn't going to write itself. Those weights out in the gym, they aren't going to move themselves. You have to do it. And you have to do it now. Don't wait anymore. Don't think anymore. Don't plan anymore. Don't contemplate anymore. Don't make any more excuses or justifications. Don't rationalize anything else. No. Take the risk. Take the gamble. Take the first step. Take action now.
You gotta take that thing out, like, you gotta take the breath out. So some of y'all are afraid of math. Go after it. Go get it. Don't run from it no more. Go get it. You go in there and go get that grade. You go in there and get that information so you can pass that class. You gotta go get it.
See, if you want to win, folks, you gotta stand up and you gotta say, I'm so sick and tired of being average and ordinary. I'm so sick and tired of telling myself and telling my wife and telling my mama and telling everybody I'm going to win. I found it this time. Watch my smoke.
Say it's possible. Let's say that every day to yourself. It's possible. And I'm saying that if you know anybody that had some goal, some dream, something they wanted to do, and they did it, then I'm saying that you know in your heart that if someone has done it, then you can do it. It's possible. And that if someone can make their dream become a reality, that it's possible that you can make your dream become a reality. You might not have the money. You might not have the education. You might not have the support or the resources you need. When you got an idea, you want to move on.
You ain't going to be here forever. And if you ain't careful, you're going to get to the end of your life and still be saying that you're going to do it tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. From this day forward, I want you to start living your life as tomorrow wasn't going to come. And that right here, right now, is the only time you can act. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right here, right now. Action is the only cure for procrastination. You need to do it now. Don't wait. Don't make excuses. Don't come up with reasons why you can't and focus on all that might happen if things go wrong. Just get up, get out, and get done. You get one shot, one. Every time you find yourself putting things off, remind yourself that there is no tomorrow. There is only today for you to act. Do it. Do it now. Act.
Time waits for no man. Life goes by, and it goes by quick. Don't waste those years. Don't waste them. Live them. I want you to be terrified of sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing. Waking up in 6 days or 6 weeks or 6 years or 60 years and being no closer to your goal. You've made no progress. That is the nightmare. That is what you really need to be afraid of, being stagnant. So get up and go.
Time is precious. Life is not just the passing of time. Life is a collection of experiences, their frequency and their intensity. Life is not just watching the clock tick away. Life is a collection of experiences, their intensity, their frequency. When my friend Mark died at age 44, someone says, that's young to die. But what if he lived 4 lifetimes in one? It might not be too young. Whatever the span of your life turns out to be, here's what you want to fill it up with: experiences and the intensity of those experiences. But now let's talk about the management of time. Now, jot this down. Approaches to the management of time. Here's the first one. Ignore the subject. I mean, that's good advice. Don't let anything overly bug you. Because remember now, you don't have to do anything. Someone says, well, I got to get a handle on my time. The answer is no, you don't. If you want to let it all go, you can let it all go. I mean, this is good advice. Somebody says, you ought, you ought, you ought. Jot this down. Ignore all the you oughts or you should. Only if they're giving general information. We should. It's better to say if you're teaching, we should. Not you should, we should. Then you let me listen in without it being too confrontational. If everyone did this, see, that'd be great. And then you give a person a chance to choose to do it or not to do it. But when you start the you ought, now see if I don't, now see we got some tension and maybe some problems. So you oughts seem to always create problems. Because this is personal dignity. And you don't want to destroy someone's dignity by doing all the oughts and then they feel reluctant to do it. Now we've got problems. Now here's the next one. Step down to something easier. The guy's in sales and he says, oh, I want to own the company. Finally owns the company. Now he's got no time to play golf. He said, when I was in sales, I was making big money playing golf 3 days a week. Heck with this owning something. Heck with managing. My life was never my own after I started to manage. I'm going back to sales. See, this is the key. If you're getting too pressed, you might consider stepping down to something with a little easier time pressure. Little girl says to her mother, Daddy comes home, brings his briefcase and pats me on the head and says hello, disappears and works on his papers. How come my daddy doesn't play with me? And her mother said, look, your daddy loves you very much, but He's so busy at work, he can't get it all done, he has to bring it home. He loves you, but that's why he can't play with you. And the little girl said, why don't they just put him in a slower group? Jot this down now. If you don't have time for your kids, you might consider joining a slower group. Next key to time management, and that's work longer and harder. But see, there's a limit to that. I almost lost my health the first year. I went so crazy about personal development and achievement. I just went bonkers. You know, I told you I was skinny, but at the end of that first year, I was a walking shadow. And then it suddenly occurred to me, what if I got rich and too ill to spend it? I mean, that was a shocker. So I started developing a little more reasonable, because I said, if 12 hours won't do it, I'll work 14. If that won't do it, I'll work 18. I mean, how many hours it takes. And sure enough, it cost me too much. So see, working longer and harder for some might be appropriate. You know, if you're just sitting around not doing that much, this might be good, work longer and harder. But you can only work so hard. Here's the key, not to work harder, but smarter. When you've worked as hard as you can, doing the best you can in terms of physical output in the time, reasonable time. Now here's the ultimate in the management of time, and that is you simply become more skillful. When I first got into sales, you know, I was around people that could get, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. And when I first started, I could only get 1 out of 10. But here's what I did. I worked around the clock, so that I would make up in numbers what I lacked in skill. That's good in sales. You got to jot that down. When you're new, you make up in numbers what you lack in skill. Now, when you become more skillful, the numbers can go down because now your persuasive ability and all of that is now so high that you don't need to put as many numbers out. But at first, if you want to compete or if you want to really get good, you've got to put in the numbers. But if you get more from yourself, develop more of yourself, now the time management becomes an easier task.
It's important that you understand that just like a dream, you dream and it's something that you just be like, wow, did that just happen? And then you wake up from that dream and then you're back in the real world. But the thing about dreams is this, absolutely nothing wrong with it. But you have to make your dream a reality. This is not a fairy tale. The world that you live in is what it is. And you are a part of it. You have to be willing to work towards something to get what you want. Wishing, hoping, all of those things are great. But what do you do with it? How far are you willing to go with it? It has to get to a point where you have to wake up from your dream. You have to just say, hey, I'm up. I'm ready to move. I'm ready to do something.
Everybody hopes things will get better. The future does not get better by hope. It gets better by plan.
Because we can sit back and imagine ourselves being in a better place, doing things with our lives. But if we're not willing to work and apply ourselves to what we really want out of life, then there's nothing going to happen.
I used to have the affliction called passive hope. It's bad. Probably what's even worse than that is happy hope. Now that is really bad. That's bad. The guy's 50 and he's broke and he's still smiling. See, that's not good.
How many times have you woke up in the morning and you just question yourself and say, what, why, and why not? Sometimes you don't really have the answers to it. But the best way to get the answers is by your actions. Traveling down that road, taking every responsibility and every action you can to make something happen for yourself. The process is not going to always be exactly what it is you want, but it's a process. And it takes time, it takes grit, and it also takes understanding. A lot of times we tend to lose sight of what it is we have to go through to get what we want out of life.
So get serious about your goals, put them on paper, write them down. Business goals, financial goals, family goals. I mean, there's so many things to work on this that if you don't get busy and work on it, sure enough, the time will pass. And sure enough, 5 years from now, you'll wind up where you don't want to be, wearing what you don't want to wear, driving what you don't want to drive, being what you don't want to be. Now's the time to fix it.
No matter how old we get, no matter how much we experience things in this world, we are all students of life. And we have to learn. And that's how we grow. The struggles are going to happen. The victories are going to happen. The failures are going to happen. But what do you do? How do you go forward and get exactly what it is you want? These things are essential. And this is what it takes. It takes passion. It takes will. It takes faith. And being able to understand that it's not going to be easy. It was never designed to be easy.
I mean, it is what it is, you know. I mean, we just have to deal with it. A lot of people are looking at this the wrong way. There is a blessing in everything. Behind every moment of adversity in your life, there is a blessing and a lesson. Pain always leaves a gift. Always. Oh, this door closed, my business closed, my job closed. When a door gets shut, all you got to do is walk up the hall. It's more doors. You ain't got to worry about because your company closed. This ain't the only company. Could it be that there's a different door that he wants you to go through that was better than the door that got shut in your face? Just keep moving, man. It ain't nothing.
You look at other people's success stories and you're like, wow, they made it. Wow, how did they? What can I do? Why can't I be like this person? You don't need to be like anybody else but yourself. Some people made it. Some people worked very hard to get what they got. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do it. It's a process. And everybody's not going to believe in your dream. Everybody's not going to believe in your vision. Everybody's not going to follow what you believe in. But you have to believe in yourself. You have to fight and believe in your abilities. You got to understand that there's someone out there waiting for you. But you have to present yourself a certain way. You have to bring something to the table. Everybody's out here looking for something. Everybody wants something, but some people are not willing to work for it. So what are you prepared to do? Keep going after what you want. Don't ever doubt for 1 minute that you are done. Don't ever doubt for 1 minute that it's over. Don't ever doubt for 1 minute that you don't have something special within you. We were all born with gifts. We were all born for something. We just have to apply what we've been given. So many people give up on their life. So many people take their lives because they don't understand. They don't know why they're here. When you were born for something. You were born to excel at something. But you got to fight and you got to believe that there's something unique and special about you.
I say to you that there is a Nelson Mandela in you. That kind of commitment, that kind of spirit, that kind of vision of allowing yourself to be used by life is in you. That all of us came here to do something, to make a difference. And in a historical context, the world will never be the same again because you came this way. With whatever hand that life has dealt us, we have the freedom of spirit. We can go through life whining and weeping, or we can have the kind of spirit that people will say, hey, there's a blessing to be around that person. And what we have got to do is know that there's something about you. There's something about us. There's a power in you that regardless of what happens to you, you can stand up inside of yourself. I think that's what the poet meant when he says, out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods there may be for my unconquerable soul. You have an unconquerable soul.
It's okay to dream. But you got to make your dream a reality. Having that hope, having faith, that's beautiful. But now you got to apply it, and you got to go out there, and you got to go get it, and you got to fight for it. No matter what happens, no matter how many people knock you down, you keep looking up, you get up, and you keep pushing forward because it's there for you. And you deserve it. The only way you're going to get it is you got to work for it.
My challenge to you this week is, I want you to write down a certain set of activities and behaviors you can run this week instead of hours, because I see a lot of people cheating their way to success and say, I was at the office for 16 hours, but you only ran 2 appointments. You were on Facebook newsfeed the entire day. You were on Twitter full on night. You watched 17 videos on YouTube. You watched 22 videos on Facebook, all the funny ones. You kept going and going. You got caught up, and an hour and a half later, no one knows it. You've been on Facebook watching an hour and a half of videos. And I hear this so many times nowadays. Look, my challenge to you isn't how many hours you're going to be at the office, because that doesn't count as work. My challenge to you is write down an activity. For me, it was 200 phone calls per week minimum, and it was 20 appointments per week minimum. And I wouldn't go home until I hit those 2 numbers. This is why for the longest time, I would work 6.5 days, and I would take half a day off on Sunday. Always. My biggest money-making days, historically, till today, is Saturday. You know why? Because most people don't work Saturdays. I work Saturdays while everybody else is kicking back. They'll be kicking back for a day and a half. I'm still going to go out there and get something in there. So my challenge to you, write down activity, not hours. Write down a number of activity you can do this week for your business, whatever it is that you're doing, and do not go home until you hit those numbers. And then next week, try to beat those numbers. Not hours at the office, number of calls, number of people you reach out to, number of doors you knock. It has to be based purely on activity. And then you'll figure out the math on how many hours, actual minutes it takes per appointment, per call. And then that's when I say 80 hours a week of real work activity. That's my challenge to you. You do that consistently for the rest of the year. Let me tell you, this could end up being the greatest year of your life and the beginning of the most ridiculous years of your life to come.
So when I was just backstage, I was looking at the Declaration of Independence, which I do quite regularly, to make sure that I've got especially the introductory statements formulated properly. And the introductory statements, I won't quote them precisely, but they lay out a series of propositions. And the first is that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that people are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that they're equal, and that government is to govern by the consent of individuals. And those are axiomatic statements, right? They're the sort of statements that you build a system from. You have to accept the statements first before you can build the system. It's analogous in some sense to Euclidean geometry, right? There's a set of axioms and you accept them, and then you can build a system, but you have to accept the axioms. But you don't have to accept the axioms, that's the thing. And one of the things that's very much worth understanding is that the current culture war that we're embroiled in, the proposition that those truths that are laid out in the Declaration of Independence are self-evident is no longer accepted by a large number of people, let's say, in the intellectual academy. And I would say that's particularly true of the postmodernists. The postmodernists profess skepticism about meta-narratives, large-scale stories that perhaps might serve as uniting structures for people's own cognitive contents, but also that unite groups of people across large swaths of territory. They profess skepticism about the validity of those narratives. And yet, well, the problem with that is it leaves you nowhere, because if you don't have a uniting narrative, a uniting story, a uniting ethos, you don't have an explanation for your existence in the world, and you don't have a direction. And that's not helpful, because You can't live without an explanation for your existence in the world and a direction. Or if you do live under those conditions, you're bound to be miserable. And the reason you're bound to be miserable is because, and I would say that this is technically true, that almost all the positive emotion that you're going to experience in your life is a consequence of pursuing valuable goals. It's not a consequence of attaining them. It's a consequence of positing them, aiming at them, and then observing yourself moving towards them. And that the sense that accompanies that, and we know the neurobiology of this sense actually quite well, the sense of that is one of forward movement and engagement and meaning and accomplishment. It's something like that. Hope, that's another way of thinking about it. And it's the antidote in some sense to the flip side of life, which is the fact that it's nasty, brutish, and short, as Thomas Hobbes put it. And that's inalienable as well. There's no escape from the limitations and suffering of life. And so, in order for that not to become overwhelming, and then that can easily become overwhelming, and often does in people's lives, then you need a countervailing set of propositions that you can act out and embody to endow that limitation with worth.